No, I think it's fantastic. I'm really excited. And this is also a super exciting, like kind of nostalgic episode for me because Webgility has a special place in my heart. Early in my career, not or even early in my career, so kind of mid-career, I had this engagement with a client where they asked me to solve a problem for them. And I thought I had the problem kind of solved using QuickBooks and QuickBooks Point of Sale. And during that engagement, really what the client needed is they needed to connect their Magento website to QuickBooks Enterprise. This was before QuickBooks Online took off, and they needed to connect it to QuickBooks Enterprise. And they actually had gone from 30 employees, I want to say, to 300 employees in less than 1 year. They were exploding. They're actually now a national brand. Can't tell you who it is, but they're a national brand. And they came to me helping. They wanted to basically streamline the orders that were backlogged from their Magento website. And what their process was people would order on their website, right? They'd print out all the orders from their website on paper. Remember paper? Yep, they print them out on paper, and then they had a staff, a team of like 7 or 8 people that would divide up that stack of orders from the website, and they would manually put them in as sales orders into QuickBooks Enterprise. And so what happened was, because they exploded, they couldn't get the orders into production. They were a manufacturer. So we were exploring all these weird ways with QuickBooks Point of Sale and QuickBooks Enterprise to expand their users because they already maxed out the 30 users that they had in Enterprise. And so we're meeting all these meetings, pitching things, and all of a sudden I'm like, there has got to be technology out there that can take those orders from Magento and zip them right into QuickBooks Enterprise. And so I did a little research, and lo and behold, who did I find? I found Webgility. And so we tested it. The team was fantastic. We did a proof of concept. It worked fabulous. It was like amazing. And I remember a Saturday morning, because we did it on the weekend, I went into their office and I imported over 1,200 backlogged sales orders into QuickBooks Enterprise using Webgility, and the client couldn't believe it. It took 3 hours for that many to import, somewhere between 3 and 5 hours, but it worked like a charm. They ended up using the scheduling in Webgility, so it was automated, completely automated, the sync from Webgility into QuickBooks Enterprise. And the thing that's so cool about this is that engagement changed my entire career, because at that time I was an accountant and I was doing accounting things. And if clients needed help with, QuickBooks, I was their girl. I knew a little bit about apps, but that kind of opened my eyes up to the power of automation and what it really can mean to a business. And it was that experience that launched the rest, or basically completely changed the whole trajectory of my career. So super soft spot for Webgility and your team and your product. And I'm really excited to have you guys on Appy Hour today. So thank you. So yay!
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that story. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it is an awesome story. And I just, it's one that I share. I actually share that story a lot. I think most people that know me have heard me talk about it at one time or another. And we actually used Avalara in that engagement too. So they did the sales tax. So that kind of comes full circle to what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome. I'm super excited. We're super excited to have you guys here and to be talking about Sales Tax Nexus and talking about automation with Webgility. And thank you for sponsoring the show today. Liz, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Liz Scott, and I have a practice accounting lifeline based out of Oklahoma. And of course, location doesn't matter anymore. So I would say probably about 50% of our clients are in Oklahoma. The other part of them are really scattered throughout mostly the U.S. We have a couple of clients that are not U.S. based, but we do everything that is related to QuickBooks and integrations, mostly e-commerce clients. And my first love is e-commerce. I love the integration and complexity of it. So this is a great episode that's right up my alley, and super excited for it. Heather?
Yes. So I'm Heather Satterley. Basically what Liz said. My firm's a little bit different in the sense that Satterley Consulting does not. I work with small businesses for sure, but I also work with a lot of accounting professionals to help them automate their internal processes and then the internal processes of their clients. And then I also have a bookkeeping and tax firm that we just launched back in December, so I've been doing some of that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two speakers today. I have one slide that that I made for Colin and Erica. I completely dropped the ball on making your slide, so I'm just going to speak to you. I know I get a big old slap because I went through and I thought I updated anything, and I'm like, oh no, I forgot that little piece. So Colin is the senior project manager at Webgility. And Colin, could you tell us just a little bit about how you got started and the things that you love and that stuff?
Yes. So I started with Webgility here about closing in on 6 years ago now. Sometime around 2015 is when I started, and I've worked in sort of multiple aspects of our product and of the e-commerce and accounting realm, basically. As far as starting with Webgility, I actually worked for over a year actually implementing the software with sellers and with their accountants, and then I transitioned over to our product role to be able to kind of lead the feature development for some of our future products. So that's, we're very excited to be here and be talking to all of you, because really, you guys are the ones that drive the direction of Webgility and of our accounting project here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to be having today. So thank you for putting that together, and just super excited to have you guys on the show. And I'm going to show off a little bit because I was just able to make a slide. So Erica, welcome, Erica. Erica is the channel sales manager at Webgility. We're super excited to have you on our show today as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your story as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. I have been with Webgility since last fall, but I came in with about a decade of partner management experience. So I'm here to support people who are selling our product in the sales process, as well as just helping them manage their customers the best that I can. And then outside of this world and work, I also am a big gardening nerd. I'm actually getting my Master Gardener certification now, so love plants.
I love this picture of you. I think it's adorable.
Yeah. This is actually taken at a partner site. So like before everything shut down, when I can, I try to visit partners in person. So one of the partners had an old telephone in their like entryway, and I was like, can I touch it?
That's
Now
awesome.
I say to my kids, I'm like, no unnecessary touching. But that was pre-COVID, so that's great.
Yep.
No, that is a great picture. I agree. I love that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And we also have Jared Ray. Jared, I didn't create a slide for you, but Jared is here with us as well. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm on the marketing team over here at Webgility. I probably won't be saying much throughout the conversation here, but happy to be a part of it, and just really excited to also to hear what Colin and Erica have to present.
Fantastic. Well, great. So I think we are just about ready to jump in. Real quick, we want to say a quick thank you to our Champaign level sponsor, Right Networks, the leading cloud hosting provider for accounting professionals. Really appreciate them partnering up with us this year. And of course, a huge thank you also to Webgility for sponsoring today's Appy Hour. So our agenda today is we're going to be doing the Accountant's Guide to E-commerce Sales Tax Rules with Webgility. Then we'll raise a toast, and then we're going to talk about our coolest thing this month, and then a preview of our next episode. So let's dive right in. You ready, Colin? Fantastic. Absolutely. All right.
All right. So yes, as most of you are familiar with, either very personally or at least tangentially through talking to other people, we're living in a world where we're all transitioning, either by the need or the want to move online for these retail and even potentially service-based businesses. There's sort of a lane for everybody to move online, and in doing that, one of the most common struggles, I mean, that again I've seen here at Webgility, that any type of standard sort of brick and mortar retailer sees as they transition online. As you can see here, just some of the most key bullet points there, I think, are your inventory, logistics, employees, and sales tax, as well as pretty much every other facet of that retail operation just doesn't exactly work the same online. It's not necessarily something to be incredibly afraid of, but it's just learning to live in a new world and a new rule set for how those things have to operate. And that's incredibly challenging and daunting, especially to a business that's been potentially operating for 10, 15, 20, maybe more years as a retail business without any need to be online. So hopefully, I mean, I think you'll be able to see, at least from what we're about to look at today, that Webgility's core competency and goal is really enabling that ability to move online quickly and easily, and be able to understand what the business actually needs and what is actually happening online there. And of course, sales tax is maybe, if not the most crucial part, definitely one of the most crucial parts to understand, at least when you are making that transition. And we can move to the next slide then.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, I was actually watching a news show the other day, and they were talking to some businesses that had transitioned to online during the pandemic, right? And they had to, because otherwise they were going to go out of business. And it was interesting to hear them, and not surprising at all, that their sales have quadrupled over what they were doing on premises once they made that transition. And one of the things that, I think is important is, being able to get up and running quickly. So being able to use your existing technology that you had for that brick and mortar store, and be able to transition that using a connector rather than trying to overhaul the entire system, I think is really helpful.
Totally. Yeah. And that's, you never really want to reinvent the wheel when there's no need to, right? So
exactly.
Moving into a little bit of the details there of why sales tax is so important. Again, I'm sure you've all probably at least heard of the Wayfair ruling, as it's typically referred to, that happened, sort of over the course of the last few years, as they debated and kind of came up with how to handle sales tax in the online world. And the result of that is, again, maybe somewhat of a scary proposition for a lot of businesses when you initially kind of look at it, because the base expectation there now is that if you hold Nexus in some sort of jurisdiction, state, local, doesn't really matter, those jurisdictions, as long as you hold Nexus in that area, you will be expected to pay tax. Now, the definition of holding Nexus in that area is where hopefully some of the fear can be alleviated, because oftentimes especially when you're first moving online, but even in, several years after moving online, you may not exactly actually have Nexus in that many areas. Some of the most common ways to initially establish Nexus are, of course, things like having an employee or inventory that's located in another state and keeping that there for a prolonged period of time. That will immediately guarantee you to have to collect taxes in that particular jurisdiction, wherever that inventory or employee is. But outside of that, the rest of the sort of collection rules around Nexus are typically defined around transaction volume and transaction dollar amount. And so if you don't cross over into those other areas, then you're generally in a safe spot, meaning you don't have to collect tax for that particular area, the same as if you didn't have an employee there, or or inventory there, or didn't make any sales there. And actually, when we look on the next slide, we'll see sort of a breakdown, a very basic breakdown, but you can get sort of a picture of the way that looks in the US after that ruling. So you can see just a few call outs here. So like I was saying, the outside of the having an actual individual in a different state or inventory in a different state, these are some of those thresholds here that I was talking about. So doing actually $250,000 in sales, or like over 200 quantity of actual sales made in particular regions. So typically when moving online, especially at least for most businesses, I think, that had some kind of retail presence within one particular state, a lot of times, even within the first year, it's very rare. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that want to be more successful and probably will be more successful in the long run, but bridging that gap and actually pushing maybe even out of your state lines, I think people find out in the long run that it's very rare, unless you had some sort of traction already in another physical location. It's going to be pretty rare to reach those revenue or count of sale thresholds within the first year or so. So typically you do have some time to sort of figure out your nexus and figure out where you should be, if you should be collecting anywhere besides your home jurisdiction. And so there's sort of multiple ways to track e-commerce sales tax, and it depends a little bit on the tools that you're using. Like we were talking about before, the not only the tools that your retail business is already using, but maybe what other tools you're looking at or would need to be able to track that online with selling in different locations online. So for example, if you're actually using QuickBooks point of sale and selling out of a brick and mortar location with that POS system, then your sales tax tracking for your local jurisdictions is already handled there within point of sale. And those tax locations can be set up to be extended to several other physical locations. But the point being that you have your home jurisdiction there and you have your home tax rate in QuickBooks. So now moving online, you're really just looking at making sure that both that local tax is covered in the orders that would be placed from your local jurisdiction, and then starting to track, look at other areas that you might need to actually record that tax from.
And I think that that's a really, really good point. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, please.
Got excited about sales tax. You did it,
yes.
Colin. You did it. So, with thinking about our stores and what's scary for them and where they get stuck is, they want to get excited about making the sale. The rest of this stuff is just confusing to them.
Totally.
And hard, and they just want to pass this over to us. And so if we can have an easy process for them, then they're more likely to follow along and play along with, the best system for them, which means if we've got some type of workflow that they can go along with, and then it's going to be a good fit for them. And sorry, I've got a roofer that's banging right there, right, literally over me.
But yes, you're totally right. That's coming up with a process to actually, implement that and kind of initiate that is incredibly important. And it does all start, it actually, to be honest, it starts at one click, one level above Webgility or sort of before Webgility, which is at your actual online store level. You have to determine and be able to set up, as the sort of the middle of this slide shows here, that variable tax rate online. So you need to be able to, enable that store. And most online stores, the seller should be able to enable some kind of either automatic tax tracking there for things like Shopify or Amazon, a lot of the more high performing sales channels that you're probably familiar with. Those actual shopping carts, those need to be set up to be able to say, okay, we got an order from Kansas City. We need to know what the tax rate there is. So that, of course, when a customer checks out and pays for that order initially, the tax is given to the seller correctly up front. Then you start to worry about the accounting impact of actually recording that, but need to make sure you're charging correctly up front first.
One of the biggest differences as far as being an e-commerce accountant, I think that's one of the biggest differences now that I see, is that early on, it's like all of these things were very segmented. Now it's like they're starting to interconnect really well. Mm-hmm. And so each of them fits together in a really nice way, so that way you've got a good system. And as long as you understand it, and just like what you're doing, Colin, you're kind of like breaking it apart and you're explaining, here's how it works. As long as you understand your system, then you can replicate it over and over again. And so
Exactly.
just like with, what Colin's doing, you can become this e-commerce expert and help people over and over and over again implement the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, we just had a question about, trying to keep track of all of those sales in the different states, right? Once you need to keep track of what are your volumes, both by quantity of sales, like the number of sales, and by the dollar value. And so once you've kind of figured out which application can give you that information in the most efficient way, now you've got something that you kind of have over, that you can scale out to other clients that are in the same position, for sure.
And that's one of the reasons that my preference with the options here that are on the screen for the sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Avalara just because I know that system really well. And so they do a nice job of keeping track for you. And so
Right.
You can see, have you met your threshold in a particular area? And is it time for you to now go file your permit? They don't do that part for you, but they can tell you it's now time for you to go file.
Right.
Definitely. And that's, I would, getting to that part of this slide, you're exactly right. And I would say that, related to what I was just kind of talking about before that, of that the sales tax, as far as it's managed with an online order, is managed at multiple different levels. And that's really that's why, truthfully, really even just Avalara or just Webgility, really none of us are adequate for that tax configuration on our own, really. And so that's really, as far as the, Avalara, where Avalara truly comes in is, as it says here on the slide, Webgility can handle it when you're not tracking too many jurisdictions. But if you're tracking hundreds of jurisdictions and actually, reporting to many different places, you absolutely need Avalara. It's just, it's a necessity at that point when the business has grown that large and is actually attracting that much attention. Everything costs a little bit of money, but Avalara is absolutely at that point when you're tracking that many jurisdictions, it's almost a necessity. That bill for that is totally worth it.
And I would just say too that, with Avalara, and honestly with any apps, if you're setting it up and you're working with the client, you have to understand the law behind it. Right. So even if you're plugging into Avalara, that's going to handle the calculations, it's going to handle, keeping track of volume and things like that, you still need to understand the concept of Nexus, because they're not going to do that for you. So
Totally.
If you're not sure and you don't understand the Nexus rules, as far as, and I'm not talking about the sales and the quantity, because Avalara will do that, right? But talking about, having the employee in that location, or do you have a logistics or third party 3PL, right, that you're storing inventory in their facility? Because if you are, you have Nexus there, and sometimes you need to be looking at that. And I think a lot of times that's where things kind of go awry, is that those things aren't considered. So, yeah, I'm always the person that says, I'm going to bring in that sales tax expert to do a Nexus study, and then they're going to take really good care of my client and then tell me what I need to do. So that's how I roll.
Totally. Yeah. Cool. I
Well,
think we can.
One more thought here is, like, you talked about the cost for each of these solutions. Oh my gosh. But I mean, whenever you think about sales tax, especially, and any type of these systems that have these different access points, they have their different roles. I'm fine with paying for my solutions and my softwares because they serve a role. It's
Totally.
like hiring a person to do a job. You've hired a software solution to do a job. It's okay. Yeah, I think let go of that idea of you've got a subscription fee. Well, it's okay. You hired a subscription to do a job. So it's cheaper than a person.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And
Right.
hopefully it's not even that, but in a lot of cases, it's probably just it may not even be doing someone else's job, but actually just saving you time, saving you saving you extra effort, of doing the same thing, right?
Definitely. All right, are we ready for the next slide?
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
Yes. So jumping into how we actually work with that and how we fit into that puzzle, and we'll take a little bit more close look at this in the demo. But the online store will record that sales tax, or actually initially charges that sales tax to the customer when they either pay with their credit card or whatever that checkout process looks like. Webgility absorbs not only that, but tons of other data about the order details and customer and all of those kinds of pieces of financial information and inventory information that you might want to track. But specifically for the tax, it's going to collect that amount that was charged and recorded to that customer online, and then give you the ability to map it through to the correct tax liability item, or the liability item that you would like in QuickBooks for that amount, and for that particular tax collection. So the amount that we grab and pull across will always be the amount that the customer actually paid you, meaning that, of course, if there was some sort of issue in tax collection, there's multiple different levels at which that can be figured out, but we will report the fact that you collected this much, and based on whatever the correct rate was, you will be able to see we should have actually paid this much, or we over collected in some area if there is any type of disparity like that.
Gotcha. And I mean, again, we have this slide here that shows, this is where Webgility sits in the process. If you had something like Avalara or TaxJar, they're connecting here at the store level, right? So whatever the platform is that's processing the sales, Avalara is hooking into that and doing the calculations and working its magic. And then Webgility is pulling the sales in from the platform and making sure that the sales tax are mapped correctly to the accounting platform. Do I have that right?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Fantastic.
Very good.
Cool. Are we going to get a demo today?
Absolutely, we are. Yes.
Fantastic. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
And
I will start sharing, I think, here.
Fantastic.
You guys should be able to see now.
Yep.
All right. So I would like to, as I kind of led to there previously, the Webgility sort of application suite that we have has so much power and capability to it for accountants and sellers that I will try and only sort of brush the surface and focus mostly on tax. But you'll be able to see that there's sort of a lot more behind the veil there that we can explore maybe some other time. So looking at the initial screen we're looking at here is our dashboard. So imagining this is what a seller or their accountant would be looking at when they've logged into Webgility, to be able to see all of that financial data as it flows through, coming from orders, refunds, and fees, basically, are kind of the easy way to compartmentalize that out. Orders being, customer is buying from you and purchasing some kind of product, a refund initiated when they either return or just refund that product, and there's some kind of monetary return to you. And of course, fees being a whole combination of those different parts throughout that transactional process where other charges are essentially taken from that initial order that was placed. Those things being payment processor fees. So when someone checks out with an order, there's going to be payment processor fees taken, as well as things like once maybe a couple hours later, the seller goes and ships that order, that shipment is going to generate a charge for the actual label. So that's another expense that kind of comes in there. So what you can see here on the dashboard is just a very quick overview of, you can see my store has been tanking. I have not been doing a great job of managing it as my sales kind of fall off here. But what we've done, you'll see just as a quick preview here, you don't have to read through all of that. But the sales and expense averages that you see here, as well as the average order value on the right, are all aggregated data from just the data that has passed through Webgility. So this is just a measure of, let's say, in this case, you can see it's my Shopify store. So this is going to give a very quick overview of just that entire sales and expense financial summary that's passing through Webgility. And then at the bottom is actually your last 5 financial summaries that are either posted or ready to post, whatever those may be. Actually, this is kind of interesting. Earlier I was messing around and you can see that I switched to a different deposit method here. So I actually have multiple days being put together there instead of single days. But typically we're doing daily syncs for that transactional information, or weekly syncs if you want to do it every week. So just looking, I'm just going to peruse those settings very quickly to kind of show you how this order, refund, and fee data is configured as it's coming across there and getting aggregated and kind of put together in Webgility. So we do have the option, as you graduate through our plans and products, the feature set kind of expands almost exponentially to be able to handle a lot of different order management workflows and shipping workflows and all things like that. But again, looking at the core competency here of just the e-commerce bookkeeping and accounting in an automated fashion, this journal entry that we have here is kind of the nicest way to do that. So all of those orders and refunds and fees will come in. They'll get all kind of standardized. So Webgility will know all of your product charges, for example, from a Shopify store. Heather talked about at the beginning that that client that she worked with had multiple different types of stores, maybe a Shopify store and a Magento store. When their order details come in from Shopify or Magento, it doesn't really matter. We will concoct it down into these simplified accounts that you're looking at that you would be doing as a manual journal entry if you were to be putting all of this order and fee data together yourself. And then furthermore, with that same information that's coming from the orders, not only are you able to select sort of all of your revenue and expense accounts that are related to those charges coming through there, but the payments and the deposits, the way that those journals are actually going to get created in Webgility will be split based on the payment processor that something flows through when it's purchased online. So of course, if a client is using, let's say, Shopify payments and PayPal as 2 separate payment processors on one online store, all of the orders through that store are not going to be processed by the same payment processor, and they're not going to be a single deposit. You're going to get 2 deposits out of that store. And so I've made this kind of overly complicated as I was messing around and adding extra payment processors. But you can see what I've done here is group these orders by payment method, which payment method will dictate the payment processor that's going to process or has processed that order. So I've grouped these orders by payment method into their appropriate processor so that the output of Webgility is a journal entry that is specific to that payment processor. And we can just kind of jump in and see how that works now. Like Heather was saying with as far as how the orders kind of, she talked about the experience that she had where she posted like 1,200 orders worth of back data. I don't have quite as many here, but we very commonly do large summaries of data like that, especially, going back at least a little bit in time. And you'll see what this screen shows you here. I've jumped over to the orders screen so you can see the actual individual orders coming from this particular sales channel. And you'll see there are new orders. There's if there were any errors, the orders that have been posted are correctly synced to QuickBooks, and then just anything you've kind of ignored or deleted. Now, when you're posting as journal entries, you can't post individual orders. You can't sync individual order information because that wouldn't really make sense. You're not getting deposits of individual orders. You're getting those deposits of, daily, or as you can see, I've actually configured these as weekly here. So here's a nice big batch of weekly orders from a while ago. And you can see I actually have 2 batches from the same week. The reason being that I have 2 payment processors that it batched those into. So these are 2 sets of orders from the same store that were processed by 2 different payment processors. And if I go ahead and sync those across, you can see that's probably a group of like 20 or 30 orders at a time. My 2 settlements have synced and they will show up over here. So that was these 2 that I just did right here. This transaction number that shows up under the completed tab, this is going to be your, my numbers are a little bit low right now. Yours will probably be normally higher, but those are the actual journal number that you will see within QuickBooks there. And then there's just kind of a summary of the revenue and expenses and the deposit that was completed there. Excuse me. One more area before I will show you what that journal looked like in QuickBooks, this period not closed tab here. So this relates to whatever whatever frequency of batching that you are doing for these journals. So in my case, I have it set to weekly right now. So it started a new weekly batch as of today, and it's just extending that batch until the week closes. And once the week closes, then that period will be closed and I'll be able to sync this as a journal entry. So let's look, and you can start. I'm sure there's like a million questions. So if you guys have any, feel free to fire away at me now, and I will start to show you this journal entry here. Whoops, I got signed right out of my QuickBooks. So, well, let me find the exact one that I did. So that was 15 and 14 that were both created. So you can see here now, and the thing to remember also is that, like I mentioned, with both the graphs and the accounts that we were able to select and set up there, is that Webgility is only going to batch and put together all of the information that it has for this particular set of orders. So there's product charges on here, discounts given, some refunds, shipping income. You can see, I think I can think of two things off the top of my head that aren't included here. Customer redemptions is another area that we handle. So if someone used a gift card that was already pre-purchased on the website, and they're actually, using that gift card that to purchase something essentially as a discount, but it's using that gift card that was previously purchased and is sitting in liability, that line item would come in here too. I just didn't have anybody that processed any orders with any gift cards for this particular batch. So the batches will be very specific to whatever orders are included in them. You're not going to get any type of like $0 line items just showing you that nothing was collected for that. And I want to jump into the desktop product, but I don't know if there was any quick things that you guys wanted to throw in there. Anything, Heather or Liz?
Yeah, so I had a question. You had talked about it's bringing over that that summary journal entry, which we love, by the way. Accountants love that. And like you had mentioned, I guess I may have missed this, but back when I used it, it was bringing the individual transactions. And I do have the option to do that if I want to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I may have missed that. I think you may have said that, and I just was.
And I just went really fast through it because there's just too much at this point. Too many options that you can have. So yes, journal entries, like you said, you can see from just kind of the interface and what we're working with here, that journal entries they're very simple, right? You're just assigning that data to accounts. Now, without jumping into it too much, on the online product right here, I can switch directly over to transactional accounting, and you'll see my options get quite bigger now because there's a lot more to configure when you're configuring transactional accounting. Yeah.
Definitely. And it really depends on whether or not the client's using their shopping cart to actually get the orders, or if they want to see that in QuickBooks. And you guys also work with QuickBooks Desktop, correct?
That is correct. And I will go ahead and drag this over here now. And I think you can see my desktop application with QuickBooks Desktop in the background there. So with QuickBooks Desktop, now you can see, hopefully, or with Webgility Desktop here, you should be able to see, there's going to be obviously some things that are pretty different, but I think the overall kind of scope of what you're looking at here should look pretty familiar to what we were just looking at. We have a couple kind of summary graphs at the top here to show this particular sales channel and kind of the activity that's happening there. Desktop, which is something I should, because you mentioned it earlier, I should quick jump back to that on online. On the bottom of the dashboard for desktop here, you can see we also have a few kind of metrics around regional sales. So you probably can't see just because the color contrast on my screen is a little light here, but those are actually states at the bottom of that. So you can see your sales per state there. Very quick, high level, kind of bullet point for if you're collecting enough sales in a particular region. And then we have some top product statistics over here on the left-hand side. And I did want to just touch back on, all of our products come equipped with some form of analytics to be able to kind of analyze most of these things. So on the online platform, even if you're doing journal entries, one of the beautiful things about Webgility is that even if you're foregoing all of that detail when you're posting it into the accounting system, all of our analytics and all of our sort of tracking that we're doing still is tracking at the online store level and is still tracking all of those details. So you can see on this store where I was posting journal entries, I have the same information that I had on that desktop product where I have sales by region with different states here. I have trending products and trending sales by region, all of those kind of things there as well. Now, what I wanted to show you primarily in the desktop application, like I said, I'm not going to go into the huge swath of sort of shipping, fulfillment options and kind of inventory management. We can do very advanced inventory management with being able to sync even sort of adjusted quantities out of QuickBooks to be able to do things like stop overselling by kind of providing a buffer of like a holdover. So we can do all kinds of things like that. But I wanted to focus, of course, what we're mostly talking about here is about taxes. And with the desktop platform, as you kind of, again, graduate up those features for a business that might need these different things, this is where we actually connect directly to Avalara. So to your point, Heather, when you mentioned before, you're absolutely right in saying that Avalara and the equation with Avalara really starts at the online store. You typically do want Avalara there if you're tracking tax in so many locations that you want them to be adjusting that on the fly for the customer that's checking out at this time. Webgility will allow you to do the same thing with Avalara on the back end as well. So you can have it actually check in both places, or you can even, if the seller hasn't integrated Avalara online, you can still do what I was mentioning at the beginning of maybe you're only tracking a single tax rate online, but you have Avalara in QuickBooks. And as Webgility essentially passes through, you can see we can map to multiple jurisdictions manually on our own, or we can pass that information through to Avalara. And as we do that on the QuickBooks side, even if you've charged the incorrect tax, Avalara will calculate it, make sure that you know what the difference was and that you pay that difference, but that in the future you can correct that then, of course. So that's just a preview a little bit into how, again, on the online platform, that tax is definitely going to come in and be able to get translated across to a specific liability account or item. On the desktop product, you have even more kind of availability of changing those tax rules either manually by mapping into the items in QuickBooks here into those actual tax jurisdictions you can manually set up in QuickBooks, or you can plug into Avalara and just dump that tax information right into there.
We know you have more flexibility with sales tax in the desktop product. But okay, so all kidding aside. So one of the things that I just wanted to stop and say is, yes, we're focusing on sales tax today because, that's kind of the focus right now. But some of the questions that we're getting in chat, I want to stop and talk about what I'm really glad that you're getting ready to talk about is inventory. But I want to stop and say, one of the differences here, and I want to clarify, is that Webgility is not just a middleware. It also is a standalone software, which means that it can handle the inventory. It can handle being a software that's going to manage a lot of the products. It can do multiple different things. So not only can it handle pushing the data from one place to another, but it can also handle all of this inventory. So if you wanted it to be the place that manages all the inventory, because maybe you were selling in multiple different places, it could do that. And so maybe that would be one of the reasons that you would choose Webgility over some of the other connectors that are out there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I can definitely, you're right. I do want to show that part as well. Like I said, we probably need, a little bit, maybe even some more one-on-one time with people to show us some of these things. But definitely, yeah. So the basis of inventory and the online product does a very similar version of this. But again, with just a little bit less complexity there. So you can see actually this screen here with the QuickBooks products and our online store products from this particular store. And then there's the matching products that I've kind of matched up there. So like you're referring to, we can both match to or map to existing products within the accounting system within QuickBooks, or we can map to those if the SKUs are different. So we can kind of draw that line within Webgility between the two products, or we can even create products actually at either end, depending on the online store, but we can create products from QuickBooks to the online store or from the online store to QuickBooks. From the online store to QuickBooks is probably more common for people that have been selling online for a while and they're just getting QuickBooks. But for established sellers who have been, working on QuickBooks for a while and maybe they have their inventory list in there, they, I guess the point being that's one thing that we can hopefully take out of the equation as far as a stressor in going online is that don't worry too much about, as long as you have SKUs, we'll get them mapped together, just have some unique identifier for those products. And once they are mapped together, that's where the syncing power of Webgility kind of takes over. So without going into too much here, you can see just on my sync product screen, this is just going to show anything that's actually been matched up by SKU and is out of sync. So you can see my prices between QuickBooks and the store here are actually the same, but my quantities are thrown out of whack. I have 1 left of those and 5 left of those in QuickBooks. So I could manually do this, or as Heather mentioned before, all of these operations are things that can be automated once you've kind of checked everything and made sure it's working the way you like. So I could sync all of these now and it would update Shopify with that number, or I could let the automation do it. And then furthermore, what I wanted to show you is that because these products do rely on and require sort of the inventory quantities that are being used in QuickBooks, we have a multitude of ways to actually be able to map to those products and correctly get that quantity right. So you can see, for example, here under my mappings for quantity and weight, what we can do is kind of take some of the burden off of things like case packs that you might sell or that a seller might have set up in QuickBooks, typically using like a group or an assembly item possibly. But if you're selling the same item in a case pack, we can do things like map that quantity of the case pack here to avoid actually having to create a separate group or assembly item that maybe doesn't quite reflect that case pack properly. You can also do things in here for that inventory as far as actually being able to map here's the product mapping area. And then what I wanted to show you was the automation rules that we have here. So under your automation rules, this is the extremely advanced level of inventory syncing here, where you are able to manipulate those quantities coming out of QuickBooks as they go to the online store. Mostly what this is typically used for is to keep sellers in stock of something that they might run out of. So you can essentially set a threshold where that quantity you may have 5 left in QuickBooks, but you want to say that when you have 5 left, you actually have 0 online because you want to make sure you don't sell out of those last few units. So that's what this can kind of be primarily used for. And you can see that quantity rule can be set. We can actually do this kind of at a couple different levels. You can set an entire quantity rule for the entire store. If you just want to say like, I want to sell 99% of what's available in QuickBooks on this store, or you can take it all the way down to the individual item level and you can map each one of those out to their individual threshold. Yeah.
So I love that you're showing that. Okay, so the thing that you did is you showed Webgility is huge. And we were focusing on a little piece of it, and you just did a nice, here's more tools that are here. And I don't even think that you started scratching the surface and digging in a little bit, but there's so much more there. Definitely. And I think the thing that we want to do is we also want to make sure that people understand, Erica's got some things that we want to cover too. Because
Yes, please.
The partner program that we want to.
I apologize.
It's Webgility is just big and we're excited about it. So
yes, and I hope the one thing I would like to mention with that is I hope it's not I don't want it to be intimidating in that way. It's only big because it has the option to be that way, in different areas for different people. Typically, most clients that we have are not using every piece of Webgility. They're using the part that is relevant to them. So it's not too overwhelming.
But it's very feature rich, which makes it flexible for lots of businesses, which is fantastic. So very cool. All right, should we switch over and raise our toast and then go through the partner program info? Fantastic. So I'm looking at my drink going, I really want to taste this. So it is time to raise a toast to Webgility, and our drink is the Webgilitini, which I love this name so much. And I'm so proud of my drink. It looks just like the picture.
Beautiful.
It looks just like the picture.
Yours is beautiful. Okay, I'm not going to show mine again. I'm just going to take a drink down here.
Okay.
It tastes really good. I can tell you I did that part right.
It's delicious.
Yes.
Yum.
Very good. Okay,
It's like a dessert. Okay, we got to keep going. So
Yes, I wanna see
beautiful.
it.
Okay, so about agility. Oh, and there's the team.
Here we are. All right, I'll keep my side short. Now that you guys obviously have seen a little bit of the surface of what the tool can do, I just want to touch on what our team can do for you as well. So you are backed in the partner program by a full sales team, including sales executives and a sales engineer, as well as myself and Mike, who's a VP of sales. So when it comes to demos or additional education or any other leverage from our team, we're here to support you. You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Oh, great.
So we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but we know that there's a few people out there that are in automation software, but we are definitely hands down number one. We're a partner of Intuit. We sit on the developer council. We also are on developer councils for Amazon, and we were one of the first people to get certified with Walmart's new marketplace last year. And you can go to the next one. There's really 4 key benefits of being a partner. I kind of already mentioned really just leveraging our own expertise. We've been doing this for 10 years. I have not been doing this for 10 years, but collectively the staff, the people behind you on my team, we have experts from this area. We have experts from QuickBooks, as well as people that came from the e-commerce space. We even poached someone that used to work for one of our clients, and now he runs our implementation team. And then we help you diversify your portfolio so that you can offer additional services. We know that your customers are coming to you for advice and that this is honestly kind of a weird time. And so we can help you add those additional services, transition into a consultative role, and broaden your reach into e-commerce. It also, of course, creates lasting customers, because if customers need you for more things, they're going to stick around a long time, and it's going to create some additional revenue for you. And you can go to the next slide now. Perfect. So I do all my training via trainingroll.com and Zoom webinars like this. So you'll be assigned a representative when you sign up for our program. They'll get you logged into Trainingroll. They'll make sure that you understand how to, at least at a high level, how to sell the product and demo the product, but then you'll get full access to our sales engineer, and you'll be able to set up high-level demos, go through additional training throughout the year. And then I'm ready for the next slide.
All right.
Perfect. So we have like over 100 integrations. This is just a really high level of what I call the key players. These are going to be the people I hear the most. Shopify, Amazon, of course, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Magento, or some other really big carts you're going to hear a lot about. And then, of course, eBay is a very long time player in the e-commerce world. We integrate with them, as well as Etsy and Walmart's marketplace. And then we touched on kind of the 2 sides of our product features. Light and Pro is going to be that first product that Colin showed you today. That's kind of our online or browser-based product. And then Advanced and Premium is going to be our desktop product. So that's going to be the downloadable software that you saw that has tons and tons of features, so that we'll be able to dive in more later. And then we do offer some additional services for customers that need historical data imports, customers that maybe don't have their own shipping module, and customization, because it comes up. Some people want their shipping labels to be printed a very specific way. We'll work with them to make sure that we get them set up properly. And then as well as you'll get training, your customers will also get training. So every customer gets a white glove experience. They get assigned a dedicated customer success manager who will have access to their account, who will help them throughout their life of their account here. We also have an amazing support team that is available 7 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. And our whole team is just made up of people that they know e-commerce, they know accounting, and they know QuickBooks. So you're never going to have to worry about your customer just being left hanging. And this is just a quick snapshot of some of our customers and what they're saying about us. I definitely encourage you to check out the reviews. We have a slew of written and video case studies I can share with you, as well as a number of customers that are always willing to speak to potential clients. If you have a customer that's on the fence and just wants to chat with someone who has been through it, I'd be happy to get you connected with them and get to talk to someone one-on-one. And this is the exciting slide for me, so I always leave this one for last. A part of the program, becoming certified, qualifies you for 20% recurring revenue for the life of the account. If that account stays with us for 10 years, I pay you for 10 years. If they grow with us, whatever they grow into counts towards your revenue as well. I do payouts quarterly with about a 1 month delay. It's gonna come from me, but I work all of my commissions out via bill.com. I think most of you are probably familiar with it, but if you don't have an account already, you'll get instructions with that first payment, how to get set up, and ensure that you can receive payment from us in the future. And then I have a special, if you guys sign up as a partner today, based off of the webinar, just send me an email and let me know. And I will get you a special branded tumbler as well as a gift card to Total Wine and More. So you can enjoy a Webgility in the future.
Ooh,
Oh, no, this is fantastic. What a great webinar. Thank you guys so much. We're excited. I mean, Liz and I were just talking, we're like, we need a deep dive of Webgility because there's so much, and we've dug into like a little tiny piece of it. I feel like there's so much more, so much further we could go. So I'm excited about it for sure. At the end of our session, I think we have just a couple minutes to go through this, but our coolest thing this month is, I don't know if you guys have heard of
a poll.
The poll. You know what? I don't think, why don't you talk to this and then I can go and get that ready.
I'd love to. So at AppSumo, they decided to hammer right in front of my desk. So they're hilarious. My roof blew off. So I live in Oklahoma and we have tornadoes and sometimes we have straight line winds. And this time my straight line winds took off a large section of my roof.
Nice.
And they're replacing it today.
Oh my gosh.
So AppSumo is the app that we chose to share with you. And what they do is they give you deep discounts into technology. And so Heather, you want to advance the slide?
Sure. Yep. And so I'm going to advance the slide. So you can go on out to AppSumo and you can find ridiculous deals on software. So I just signed up for an app that I'm testing for a client. It's called Sweet Dash, and it's business software that does all kinds of really cool stuff. And it's $79 for a lifetime. And it's like an $1,100 value. So you can find these apps on AppSumo and all different kinds of apps that you can, pay pennies on the dollar to try out and implement for a lifetime. So I just thought that was a cool thing. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to share with everybody. For sure. And I do have our poll, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that out. Yeah. And there you go. So if you would like to have Erica and her team reach out to you with more information about Webgility, I will be happy to forward your information to her. So just make sure that you vote in the poll and I will send it right on over to her after the webinar today. So yeah, I am excited about AppSumo. I've actually brought a couple of things off of AppSumo, Liz, that have been really great deals.
Oh, I think that Donna was asking to get the contact information, but she might have got it in chat. So hopefully she got that.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to leave this up for just about another 20 seconds. It looks like we've got a lot of interest, so keep voting.
Okay, well, while they're voting, I'm just going to have to make some funny roof jokes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have any, but anyway. So we're happy that everybody joined us today. I feel like Webgility is huge. I feel like lots of opportunity there. So if you are somebody who is working with e-commerce clients, or somebody who has been scratching the surface with e-commerce and really interested in making that lunge, definitely reach out to them to get more information, because they've got so much to offer. Sales tax is a big thing, so being able to integrate, being able to help with the inventory management, there's a lot there to offer. So thanks for launching that poll, Heather.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited. I mean, this was kind of a big deal for me to have you guys on Appy Hour today, because I really do have such a soft spot in my heart for Webgility, and it really is such a great product. So everybody, make sure that you visit our website. We'll have the recording of this session up definitely by end of day tomorrow, probably sooner than that. Share with your friends. Next time you hear somebody say, hey, how do I connect my e-commerce store to QuickBooks? Now you know. So fantastic. You can also get our drink recipes, read our blog, send us a message, and connect with our sponsors. So don't forget to reach out to Erica. She dropped the URL right into the chat, so you can just click on that and get started. And I'm going to send over all of those people that wanted Erica to reach out to you. I'm going to send her your information a little bit later. If you are joining us via Facebook, thank you. But you can also come in and join the fun here in Zoom, where we have the Q&A in the chat box. So we'd love to have you here. And that also puts you onto our mailing list, where we'll remind you about our upcoming episodes. And then our next episode will be next week. On July 14th, we'll be having Fundbox, and we're going to be talking about finding the right funding for your clients. This is going to be a really interesting, really interesting episode. So I strongly encourage you to check it out. Fundbox is an amazing company, and the topics that we're going to be discussing are very relevant right now in our economy. And I'm super excited for this.
Not everybody realizes they do. So there's more to them than just invoice funding. So they do quite a few different types of funding. And so they're going to be telling us all about that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, this will be fantastic. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jared and Colin and Erica, so much. Thank you to our partners at Right Networks for being our champagne level sponsor for 2020. And thank you to all of you, our wonderful Appy Hour friends, for joining us today. You guys take care, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Liz and Heather.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.